First of all, I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity to be here. This is my second trip to Uganda, but the first one where I actually leave the airport. So I'm really happy to see your beautiful country and to have the opportunity to be here with you. I want to take a moment as I start to thank the ministers and thank the delegates. I want to thank the organizers. I want to thank our partners, which we've been on the journey together, Microsoft and HP, on a number of these education transformation projects. I also want to recognize our team from Intel that's based here in the region that is educating me in terms of what's needed to help transform education here in this region. A little bit about Intel and education. Intel, since the very beginning, we recognize the importance of having an educated workforce. Our greatest asset is and will always be the talent of our employees. We recognize that those talents and skills are developed early in life and then through life in a mode of lifelong learning. We understand that as Intel is an engineering company that has to bring innovation to market. We're also very committed in working with a number of the key industry players and governments to help drive that education transformation change. Myself, as I said, I've traveled to many of the countries that we've participated, so I come to you not as an expert in education, but as a witness to experts. So I'm going to cover some things that Anthony has already covered, that Dave had already covered, and that you'll probably see through the day, today and tomorrow and the next day. Consider this not repetitious, but consider it the framework of learnings that we have had in terms of projects that we have been engaged and where we can discover what works and what doesn't work. One of the things that I've discovered as I travel around the world, that obviously connectivity is an issue, but for the most part, there's a lot of students that are connected. So the issues that we face today is not so much if the students are connected or not, or if they have a device or not, it's what they're doing with these devices. We see that there's always an opportunity in a negative way for there to be another digital divide. Not in terms of having access or not having access, but being able to engage in a meaningful way, in a creative way, in a maker way of the information that is out there, so it can really lead to new growth of entrepreneurship and new opportunities for employability. We've already quoted OECD a number of times, and I'll quote them one more time. The world economy pays you for what you can do with what you know. So just to have access is a great starting point, but really to engage that access in a learning way, in a way that really will create creators, if you will, not just consumers. And as we look at the demand for jobs looking forward, we see a lot of pockets and very deep areas of youth unemployment. But we also recognize that there's a lot of jobs that are being created. Anthony talked to this. I know Dave talked to this too in terms of the jobs of the future and our preparedness in terms of engaging and your youth and our children to be able to participate to this innovation economy. More than 50% of today's jobs require technology skills, and in the future that will increase dramatically. That means that the children here in Uganda, the children in the region, need to have that opportunity so they can make the best of that opportunity, and education is foundational for that. When we look at the required skills, I won't spend too much time on this because you all know them. I spent some time in Panama speaking to their government about their projects, and when they saw a similar slide to this, they said, Brian, that seems like 21st century skills, but when we were building the Panama Canal in 1914, we needed these skills also. So these are basic human areas of engagement in terms of critical thinking, collaboration, working in teams, communicating. What technology can do is scale that. Bring that in new, powerful ways that are more engaging and more empowering to the users. And we see that, again, as an opportunity that to take to the next step in terms of, and Dave talked about that, and I was very interested in his approach from what's happening in the UN, looking at the era of access, the era of learning, the era of outcomes, and really leading to this era of innovation. To children, adults using information in a way that they can apply it in a way that will help drive national competitiveness, that will help drive social cohesion, that will help develop and bring economic opportunity. In the rest of the presentation, I'm going to share with you the learnings of heroes in countries that had the commitment and the courage to take on this change. And they are all around the world, and they're all around this room. So I'm going to spend a little bit of that time that I have to talk about a few examples from these experiences around the world. But in every one of them, in these experiences that we see as we engage around transformation and using technology, we recognize that the youth in the countries need to be creating, collaborating, and yes, also consuming. But the next great makers, the next great industry leaders are going to come from that youth that knows how to engage with technology to bring new values to the country, to their community. And we see that technology today can play an important role, but how we implement is absolutely critical. Alicia Bañuelos, a principal in a university in the province of San Luis, Argentina, took on that challenge for her community, for her state, for her country. She saw that bringing in technology in a way that was going to enhance the critical thinking, the creative abilities of their children was going to bring a new opportunity for Argentina to leap ahead from the information access to the innovation society. And today in Argentina, that's happening. And today in Argentina, the children are not only reading books, they're authors and publishers, because of a lot of the material that they are using digitally gets scaled out to other groups. Today, the teachers in Argentina are not only using content from others around the world, but are creating their own content, using the tools from Microsoft, using technology from HP, and bringing that to really create a community of learning. So we see these as great opportunities, and we have some great examples from around the world that are happening today. And when we think about this education transformation wave, I was fortunate enough to be living in Spain and Portugal when in 2007, the government made a mandate. Some people call it a manifesto. They said every child is going to have a computer in the classroom. At the beginning, we all said, wow, that's a great idea, but it may never happen. Well, it did happen. They were able to make it work. They worked with parents, teachers, educators to drive a program that was not just about bringing devices, but about enhancing the learning. From that program came many others. We've seen around the world an expansion of this wave. Just in the last few weeks, I've been fortunate enough to visit in Mexico, in Brazil, in France, and in Germany, and most recently in Kenya and Rwanda, where I have seen these transformation projects take hold. For me, I'm inspired to see that level of commitment that is there from the leaders. Leaders that are not cheerleaders, they are committed leaders. Leaders that are making a change. When I was able to visit that school in Rwanda, it shared with me again why we are out on this mission to give that opportunity to help the new creators of our future. As I travel in the region, and as Dave said, I frequent often the region, and I want to be here even more, I see that Africa is ready. I see Africa is ready because I see the commitment of the leaders. I see Africa is ready because I see the commitment of the ministers to really, in our lifetime, make this the opportunity that we took the best that we could for our children and we brought it in a way that will give excellence to their educational outcomes, and then with it will drive our economies. I see it because today we don't stand here as HP, Microsoft, and Intel, three companies that just met at the parking lot of the airport. We come here with tremendous experience of what works and an understanding of what doesn't work. And we are so willing and so ready to share that with you because you are so ready to take that next step. We are here and we're excited because there's a community of parents and teachers, of uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters that really see that this is the moment of our times to really take this opportunity and bring technology, not just to entertain, but to educate. And as I said earlier, not just to consume, but to create. This is the opportunity of our lifetime, and I am so happy that I can share it with you of what I'm learning from you all in terms of this journey. I had the opportunity when I was working in some of these projects, particularly in Portugal, to meet some of those heroes. One of them I mentioned earlier, Alicia Bañuelos from Argentina. Another one was Dr. Mario Franco. And he talked about the fact that how we deploy technology is absolutely essential for the success. Recently, many of you may have seen an article that was published by the OECD saying that in many instances, the technology has not met the expectations of the educators or the parents. That there are a number of technology projects in education that have failed. And I agree with that. I've seen many of them myself. Because it's not about bringing in a device. It's about bringing in a new learning model. It's not about bringing in just connectivity. It's about engaging the teachers. It's not just about bringing in digital content. It's about empowering learning. And we have to look at that very realistically and very holistically. What I saw the other day in Rwanda was an example of that. An example of the teacher putting the children at the center of the learning. And the students not overly engaged in the technology, but absolutely engaged in the learning. And that is what's needed to make these projects successful. And then when we look at the past when we looked at what the future would be, we thought that it was about making sure that all our kids have a technology device. And that, I have learned, is not necessarily going to give you the best results or the fastest results. What you really want to create is an environment for those children to engage with each other. I come here from Intel, a technology company, and I would say that the best technology device in the classroom would be one that's invisible, one that does not interfere with the learning process and encourages, one that creates communication at a next level so children are not only connecting in the classroom, but are connecting with each other around the world. I've been able to see how in Argentina classes are connected to Hong Kong. I've been able to see how in Portugal classes are connected with Brazil. So that level of scaling the communication and collaboration is what technology can make possible and is happening now, and we needed to bring it into our classrooms today. There are new types of models, but those models, the one thing that they have in common is that they put the student at the center, and they do not diminish the importance or the significance of the teacher as mentor, guide, and leader. When I hear the work that Microsoft is doing and that HP is doing around teacher professional development, we are delighted. Intel participates in those types of activities because we see them as fundamental. We recognize that having the student at the center means that you have an empowered teacher that can bring in the right resources at the right moment so that these children can engage. It means that these devices can go to the home, not only stay in the classroom. Most of the learning that we have learned that happens in an educational context is not just in the classroom, it's outside the classroom. Today we have technology that gives us that capability, that makes it safe and secure for the children to take these devices home, use them in a way that not only enriches their experience, but also brings additional access to the home. Those are the types of projects that are truly transformation. Those are the types of projects that we can do today. Those are the types of projects that I saw happening in Rwanda, that are ready to move in Kenya, and are happening in the region. When we talk about Intel and our education solutions, and I'll be very brief on this, because it's really about the experience. In the best case scenario, it would be totally invisible, right? But under the scenes, we have partners that we work with very closely. We have teamed in many, many projects. Anthony, as you know, I've worked with your teams all around the world. I work with Dave all around the world, making sure that we can bring and help deliver the best educational experience so we can make that experience in the classroom as exciting as the kids have many times on the weekends when they're working and playing and doing games. Making learning and fun is part of the process. It's part of the engagement, and technology can play a role. Very quickly, on the evidence of impact, as I said before, there's been leaders, and there's many of you here today, that have had the commitment, have worked in a collaborative team with industry, and have had the community behind you to make this change happen. Early on, as I mentioned, I talked about Portugal. Portugal created not just a new model for learning, but really raised the economic activity in the country. When those 750,000 devices came to every child in public schools, it created new opportunities. In 2006, the biggest export area in Portugal was cork. To put in cork in wine bottles. That was one of their key exports. In 2013, it's software for education. They have been able to, with this movement, this wave of transformation that happened in the education system, create new industries, software and services industries that are helping drive the economy in tough times. Today, the children in Portugal are referred to as the Magellan generation. Magellan was the name of the project that started this technology transformation in Portugal and continues strong today. We've seen that, as I said earlier, spread around the world. When we talk about Argentina, where they have deployed over 7 million devices into the public school system, we see that not only has new industry grown, but significant changes have occurred. Similar to Portugal, they have seen a significant reduction in the dropout rate. To give you a point from Portugal, if I can go back to that example, in Portugal, the dropout rate in secondary school went down 50% in the period from 2006 to 2012. That's a tremendous increase in the engagement of the children in education. In the same period, their PISA scores went up twice at a higher rate than any other country in Western Europe. So we've seen these types of educational outcomes be real. The same thing in Argentina. We've seen in Argentina that over multiple year trends, when they have done the one-to-one implementation in a very controlled, very scientific approach, baselining the usage, they have seen significant increases in scores of math, science, and reading. These are real changes that are happening. But to me, it was not about the technology. To me, what really brought this change was the engagement of the parents and the teachers in the learning of the students. That type of attention and focus is the baseline for anything and everything that we do. We have seen it regionally in Senegal, programs that are coming in to university students, not just to increase access, but to really drive the learning process, to really give an opportunity for students to virtually connect in a way that they can be approaching the technology as a vehicle, as an instrument, as a platform for their learning. We've seen success in the region, and we see this as a continuing trend. Lastly, I want to just summarize some of the lessons that we have learned in terms of projects that have been successful and projects that did not quite meet the mark, but are now in the process of recalibration. First and foremost, government commitment supported with clear deliverables, baseline and measurable outcomes. When I go to Rwanda, and I meet with the Ministry of Education, they talk about their master plan, where they are, what the deliverables are, and what they need to make sure that they're successful. They talk about dependencies around teacher professional development. They talk about dependencies around managing the content. These are important projects that have to be managed with the discipline of projects at this scale. These are not just the projects of the ministries of education, these are projects of the country. These are projects around national competitiveness, and they need that level of attention. We need to engage students and parents as part of the process. We need to empower teachers on new learning methods, not just bringing in the technology and just digitize some of the content and bring it on and think that's going to change. No. We have to look at new models that really look at project-based learning, creative approaches to problem solving, because that is what our children need for the level of complexity of the problems that they will face in the future. And lastly, This is an opportunity to make it more than just an access project and really reach everywhere. When I look at the projects that are happening in Bolivia, it's not what's happening in La Paz, in this capital city, it's what's happening in the highest points of the Andes Mountains, where they have blended classrooms, where you have first, second, and third, and fifth graders maybe in the same classroom. But they are using technology in a very personalized way, in a very way that's adaptive to their needs. So both in the cities and the rurals, they have that same level of access to technology that will help them truly transform and have those opportunities to become creators and makers in the 21st century. And lastly, I'll leave you with a few ideas from Michael Trucano of the World Bank. I've had the opportunity, just like I run into Dave and Anthony, to run into Michael in a few of these meetings. And he spoke in Korea a few years ago about what he saw in terms of these large-scale transformation projects. He had an opportunity to in-depth study what had happened in Portugal and Argentina in large scales. Again, to summarize his points, take the opportunity to make this a truly education transformation project. Don't just make it a project about bringing technology into the classroom. Make sure that you have opportunities to create software industry, to work with your partners like Microsoft and HP around new programs, exciting programs that can help build the services industry around the country. And to continue to explore private and public partnerships. Mario Franco once told me something that you could relate, which is a famous saying in Africa. It takes a village to raise a child. Mario Franco told me, it takes the world to educate a child. We are here as Microsoft, Intel, and HP to help you in that process, to take the best learnings that we've had around the world and to help you in this moment, which is your moment in Africa, to help ensure the best future success for your children. I want to thank you very much on behalf of Intel. It is my pleasure to be here, and I enjoy this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you for the next couple of days. Thank you very much.